President Obama had nominated Merrick Garland, but that was not good enough for Republicans. Republicans needed to be able to choose their own. And so here they've held out. Republicans held the line. They would not budge an inch based on their principles. And so here we are with their nomination, Neil Gorsuch. His picture is on the screen behind me. Neil Gorsuch is Donald Trump's pick to be the replacement for Antonin Scalia in the seat that was designed, or not designed, I guess design is completely the wrong word, but the seat that President Obama attempted to nominate, or he did nominate Merrick Garland for. So let's just get a little bit of background for Neil Gorsuch. He is a Colorado and a DC native. He's a graduate of Columbia University. He went to law school with President Obama, graduated in 1991 from Harvard Law School. On his legal philosophy, he is considered to be a textualist who is concerned primarily with the literal text of laws and less with their, quote, legislative history or social context of passage. To pay attention to that part, because that part is very important when we discuss him. He is the heir apparent, the intellectual heir apparent of Antonin Scalia. Not only did he go to graduate from Columbia and went to law school from Harvard, he got his doctorate degree at Oxford University. And when when Antonin Scalia died, he was quoted as saying, quote, "I was taking a breather in the middle of a ski run with little on my mind but the next mogul field when my phone rang with the news about Antonin Scalia's death. I immediately lost what breath I had left. I am not embarrassed to admit that I could not see the rest of the way down the mountain for tears. He really was a lion of the law, docile in private life, but a ferocious fighter when at work, with a roar that could echo for miles." So anyway, that's his thoughts on Antonin Scalia. A lot of people so far, just a quick survey across the webs, they see him as a great pick. Conservative Christians have already put out the word that he's a great pick. And I think this is because of where he fell on the Hobby Lobby decision. He, in 2013, was a part of the decision that essentially said that corporations, it wasn't enough that they were people, but now they are people with religious beliefs. And because corporations are able to transmutate, I guess, the religious beliefs of their owner, right? We're not talking about religious organizations. We're not talking about nonprofits. We're not talking about religious hospitals. We're talking about, quote unquote, secular profit businesses. And in this case, the Hobby Lobby, the decision that was decided at the lower court level with Gorsuch, they essentially said that corporations have the ability to take on the religious identity and beliefs of their owners. And what that meant in the Hobby Lobby decision was that Hobby Lobby, because it was a religious corporation, was able to ignore the mandate for contraceptive coverage. I think I said it right the first time. That was mandated by the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. And so he is clearly anti-choice. He's anti-contraception, and he considers himself to be a textualist, which says that he's primarily concerned with the literal text of the laws. And this becomes a justification a lot of times by Supreme Court justices, as well as people who are just making the arguments, right, outside of the legal realm. People who like to make the arguments on behalf of the Constitution, saying that it's the literal word on the text, not the intention of the person who of the lawmakers, or not even to be considered in the context of the time and the changing times. They take what's written on paper. Here's the problem with that. When America is built at the time, I mean, if we take the literal text of the Constitution, black people are 3/5 human, right? at the time of the drafting of our Constitution, America was made for white Christian men. Now, it was not made to be a white Christian male nation, but it was created to the benefit of white Christian men, clearly. And this is not to say that our founding fathers were all Christian, but the America served the interests of the majority of the people at the time, which were white Christian men. Now, people who are textualists and, let's just leave it there, textualists, they tend to defer back to the law and the Constitution, rather, as it was written when it was written. And of course, there are volumes upon volumes of arguments from both sides. Not much that commentators like myself can actually add to the argument, but I will just add this, that it becomes very beneficial to the people who were represented, I guess, properly at the time of the writing of the Constitution to interpret the laws in that same exact way without any consideration for changes in society. Not only is it beneficial for them, it's detrimental for people who are not that, right? So if America at the time of its founding was made to the benefit of white Christian men, textualists will leave it just there as it is without any regard for people who are not white Christian men. They don't ever have to say it. They don't ever have to argue it. They never have to even delve over into the conversation about the changing dynamics of America. They never have to give any regard to it because the default position of America is to the benefit of white Christian men. And so they're completely able to take this pompous, pious, holier than thou, originalist position, or in his case, in Gorsuch's case, a textualist position. They're able to take that and feel noble about it without any regard to the fact that their decisions are detrimental to everyone who is not a white Christian man. And they never have to even consider it because all they have to say is, oh, I'm an originalist. I'm a textualist. And I don't believe that the document is a living, breathing document. I believe that it should be taken in the context of when it was written. Well, in that case, there's a lot of people who are left out of the consideration of what America was when it was originally founded. So anyway, back to Gorsuch himself. So he was on the side of the Hobby Lobby decision. Clearly he's anti-choice. Clearly he's anti-contraception. He's pretty much anti-anything that you don't find nicely nestled into the original interpretation and writing of the Constitution. And in regard to the Hobby Lobby case, something that I want to point out that really kind of shows you how disingenuous this decision was. There's a section in there that reminds me of, and actually, I think, where's the first time I heard this? I want to give credit. I think this was a long time ago. So I'm gonna say Rachel Maddow. I think Rachel Maddow pointed this out some years ago, that just like the case with in 2000 with Bush versus Gore, where they ultimately decided that this was that George Bush was going to be our president. In that decision, they said that their framework, their decision-making process, their thought processes in that decision could not serve as precedent for any other case, which was like the first time I think we've ever seen that. Well, it wasn't the last time we ever saw it, because in the Hobby Lobby case, they said the same thing. And essentially, to me, it seems like special pleading, making a special case, special argument so that this can fit nicely within the framework of the people who are doing the litigation. They said of the Supreme Court decision, they said this decision on the Hobby Lobby decision, rather, they said this decision concerns only the contraceptive mandate and should not be understood to hold that all insurance coverage mandates, for example, vaccinations, blood transfusions, must necessarily fall if they conflict with the employer's religious beliefs. And so they, in this decision, which Neil Gorsuch had a hand in the lower courts, the Supreme Court took it one step further and said that this cannot be used as any other precedent. We're only going to limit, not precedent, but we're going to limit this to just contraception. So it shows you how I don't want to say disingenuous, but how specific they made this case to the benefit of Hobby Lobby, to the detriment of all of Hobby Lobby's employees, and not just Hobby Lobby, but other corporations now who are able to not only be people and have freedom of speech with unlimited funds from a corporation, but they're also able to take on the religious beliefs of the owners. Therefore, if the religious belief of the owner is we don't believe in birth control and we believe in abstinence only, then now women are unable to get birth control through their insurance coverage from their job. This is who Neil Gorsuch is, however you pronounce his last name. Now, to be fair to him, no, bump that. I don't care about being fair. They don't care about being fair. Why should we? I'm not putting that monkey on my back anymore. But he is, in terms of understanding the law and procedures and just having a firm grasp of the job itself, he's qualified. He's just as qualified as Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland was qualified. So it's not a question of if he's qualified. The question is, where is he qualified based on his ideology? And he brings a strong Christian, conservative, evangelical ideology to the bench, which is not docile. It is I want people to understand this. I'm a Christian. And you have Christians who weaponize their faith. Gorsuch is one. He weaponizes his faith, and he has the convenience of wrapping it in textualism, essentially saying that I just have to interpret the Constitution as it was originally written without any regard to changes in societal norms. So he gets to hide this weaponization of his religion based on the fact that he can hide behind this lofty, erudite position where it sounds noble, it sounds intellectual, but it is itself hostile. It is hostile to anyone who is not white, male, or Christian. And you can see it perfectly demonstrated in the Hobby Lobby decision. The Hobby Lobby decision is an affront to women's rights. It's a affront to religious freedoms. I don't care what they try to say religious freedoms on their end, but it's also an affront to religious freedom from religion, right? And it's an affront to essentially anyone who's not just by default protected in America. By default, white Christian men were protected in America. And I'm sorry, this is just one of those things that really ticks me off, is that you get the benefit of not having to fight anything. You can leave America as it is, and it would by default benefit Christian white men to the detriment of anyone who is not that. And so over the next couple of days, you're going to hear people talking about how he wants to hold tight and firm to the original interpretation of the Constitution, the letter of the law, right? What's written there without any context, the framework of changes in normal societal norms. And it's going to sound good. It's going to sound lofty. They're also going to be able to put in context his robust education and experience, which he certainly has. But you have to read between the lines. His docile and sweet demeanor is hostile to anyone who is not a white Christian man, because that is the framework through which he interprets the Constitution. And that's how he wants to apply it from the bench. And that's why he must 100% be opposed by Democrats. No exceptions. This should be an easy opposition for them. But some reason deep down, I believe they're going to muck it up. I didn't say the F word. I said muck. They're going to muck it up. 857-600-0518 if you want to join the conversation. We'll talk a little bit more about Neil Gorsuch, and more specifically, we're going to talk about the fight that the Republican Party, particularly Donald Trump, he has a hell of a fight on his hand.